Everybody, welcome to another teacher talk session tonight. And I'm very excited because tonight is my 40th live session in teacher talks. And tonight I have another very special guest, just like other sessions. And she's Fatosh Eren Bilgen. She's from London, and she is a researcher, developer, and teacher trainer, Dr. Fatosh Eren Bilgen from UK, and we are going to be with her tonight. And tonight we are going to talk about like teaching experiences, online learning, and assessment, and motivation, and autonomy, teachers' autonomy, and students' autonomy, and 21st century skills, and effective report, and so on, etc. And also mixed activity classes if we have a time, and other questions we are going to discuss. And if you have any questions to ask to Dr. Fatosh Eren, please write your questions into the question parts, and I will ask her during the sessions. And I don't want to take your time, and I would like to invite her here, Dr. Fatosh Eren Bilgen. She is here. I saw her. Let me... Just a moment. Yes.
Hello everyone, hello Volkan. Can you all hear me? Hello, I can see you, but I can't hear you. So let me just try taking off my right.
Now, can you hear me, Fatosh
Yes,
Hocam?
I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay, I think it's clear now.
Yes, I can hear you. I had to drop the headphones.
Okay then. Okay. Welcome to Teacher Talk Sessions. I would like to start like this. It's great to see you, Fatosh Hocam. Really, after a long time, you are here in front of us. And I'm sure that it's going to be a really fantastic session tonight. And if I don't, I would like to say thank you to accept my invitation to Teacher Talk Session. It's a great honor to have you here tonight. And that's all.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Volkan. Thank
Hello?
you. The pleasure is mine. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here with you guys. And thank you, everybody, for joining. I don't know where you're joining from the world. So if you want to type in the chat, it would be nice to see where you are. As Volkan said,
Yeah.
I'm based in the UK at the moment for some time now. So we can start the questions.
Oh, okay, so I know you are very busy, and if you are ready, we can start. Okay. Yes, the first question is very difficult. Fatosh Hocam, I know you very well, but our listeners, maybe they don't know you and they would like to know about you. Can you tell us about yourself, please?
Yes, it is a difficult question. This is one of the first questions we always ask, but yes, very briefly, let me kind of tell you who I am. So as Volkan said, I'm Fatosh Eren Bilgen. I have joined the ELT teaching community 21 years ago. So when Volkan asked me to join this session, I had to sit down and think, what am I going to tell everybody listening and answer Volkan's question. So it made me realize that I have been teaching for 21 years. So time really flies. I hadn't really noticed that until,
Wow.
until you made me think about my age, Volkan. Um,
Yeah.
so I started teaching academic English first of all, and then I moved to the United States for some time, and there I taught research skills to undergraduate students. Then I went back to North Cyprus. I'm from North Cyprus, for those of you who don't know me, and I lectured English language teaching departments. That's where I met Volkan, is one of my first students. And so there I was teaching mainly educational research, classroom management, language acquisition. I think those were the main
Yes.
things that I was teaching.
Yeah, still
um,
remember.
so after that, I decided to continue with my formal education, and I moved to the UK. So this was 12 years ago. So I pursued my PhD at Warwick. And at the moment, I'm mainly teaching PhD students, postgraduate researchers. So I moved a little bit away from ELT,
Hmm.
but I try to keep in touch because of the teacher trainer aspect of my job. And working with new teachers. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a brief summary of who I am as a teacher.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you. It's a kind brief. And actually, this question is little bit maybe more difficult than the first one. And actually, I'm sure that you cannot, you can talk hours and hours about it, about your experiences. Like, let me move to the question. Like, can you tell us about your experiences in teaching?
right. So as I said, I started with academic English and then English language teaching. So students who were training to become English language teachers. And I also, in addition to my teaching experience, I also did some work in curriculum design with a Kazakh university. So worked with teachers to develop their EAP curriculum there. I was still based in the UK, but I was working with a university. So my teaching experience revolves around higher education mainly.
Hmm.
Although I have also taught for 3 years further education. So that's in the UK context, teaching adults English as a second language, not a foreign language, but as a second language. And during my PhD, I worked with teachers. Basically, I researched on teacher identity. I wanted to find out, explore why people choose to teach. We are kind of a unique bunch. We love this job. We don't mind if we don't get
Yeah.
paid for it. So I was quite intrigued to find out why people teach. So I moved to that research area. And when I was researching about this, I was still also teaching. Again, mainly international students who came to the UK to pursue
Yeah.
their postgraduate education. So they usually do a couple of months training, English language academic English training. So I taught in foundation schools programs in different universities. But as I said, for the past 6-7 years, I moved to postgraduate training. So
Hmm.
developing a researcher's skills in the UK, that has become quite a big thing. It has gained momentum. So we just don't want our postgraduate researchers to write a thesis anymore. We want them to gain the skills that they will need to
Yeah.
be effective and well-rounded professionals when they finish their PhD and when they decide what they want to do. And most of them
Hmm.
decide to be academics. Some of them want to work in industry. So whatever they choose to do. So this is where for the past 6 years my teaching career trajectory took me.
Oh, great. Wonderful experience. And I think there is a kind of the problem with the connection. Your voice is coming and sometimes you freeze and you come back again. Is
Okay.
there the problem with the...
Let me try my mics. Could you give me 1 second?
Sure.
I will check. I will check something because my husband is also having a meeting at the same time, and I think we are sharing the internet. So I will just go and see. I'll be back. So while I'm just going and coming back, why don't everybody write which country they're from? I saw Georgia, so I'm quite
Yeah, I
curious
can.
where you're all joining.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think there's a kind of a problem with the connection, so that's why she had to check it. And maybe if you have any questions to ask, you can think about it, and you can write that questions into the question part, and then I can ask the questions to her. Yeah, sometimes this happen.
Right. Let's see if this is going to be better. Is it better now?
Yeah, I think so. We will see.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Okay then. Yes. And you have finished about your experiences. And my next question is about your own education, Fatosh Hocam. What was your favorite moment or experience in your own education, which is something you still remember?
Oh, that's another difficult question will come because I see myself as a student, as a learner. So I keep doing degrees and studying. What was my favorite one? Okay, I shouldn't give any names because there are so many
No, okay, don't.
so many teachers who have had an impact on me as a person. But I think there are two experiences that kind of sets aside everything else. When I was in the United States doing an education specialist degree, I got an opportunity to work with a supervisor called Dr. David Sandberg. And I think the way that he was interacting with us and the way that he introduced us to new ideas, it had a big impact on me as a teacher and who I became as a teacher. So I would say that my experience in the United States is one that I kind of remember dearly. He introduced me to Parker Palmer, who is a great author. If you haven't read The Courage to Teach, I think that's my first kind of suggestion to everybody listening. It's a wonderful book, and it kind of set the seeds in me to kind of explore more about why people choose this as a profession and not something else, and how we can actually be good teachers, and we try our best. So I think Parker Palmer's The Courage to Teach is a wonderful resource. It's an old one, but so for David Sandberg for introducing me to him, I think I have to say thank you to him. And it had an impact on me. And also my PhD, I suppose I got the chance to work with a brilliant supervisor, Dr. Keith Richards, and how we explored different ideas and how I changed my practice throughout that process. I think those are the favorite things from the formal education. But I have to say here as well, it's not only formal education, but I learned so much from my students and from my colleagues. So those are the things that I really enjoy as well.
It's great, really. Have you got any moment about me? You still remember something?
You know, that's interesting to say, because you are part of the students that I said. I really enjoy learning with and together with my students, and my experience teaching you guys has been a special one for me as well, because I was still quite new and I didn't really think I was doing justice to the cohort that I was teaching, but you were all wonderful, and I think we learned together how to become better teachers. So so yes, that's a special moment as well. Not from my teaching experience, not from my formal education, but I think it's still a great memory, and I still remember you guys fondly.
Yeah, thank you. We still remember you too, Fatosh Hocam. You have a very special part in our hearts.
Yeah, it's mutual.
Thank you. And my next question is, can I move?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and my next question is about your current job. So can you tell us about your current job and what kind of things you are doing there?
As I very briefly mentioned before, I design, deliver, and I also coordinate the program for the university that I'm working for. So I deliver the training sessions for PhD students. So these are students from all colleges and departments. So they're not only English language teachers or social scientists. So I get to work with medical students and engineers as well as social scientists as well. So I coordinate the program. As I said, in the UK, researcher development has become a really important area, a new area, and it's been developing for the past 6-7 years. So, and I was really lucky to kind of find myself in this platform and work with PhD students in this way. So as you know, in the UK, they traditional PhDs write a thesis. So in the past, it was only about writing a thesis and publishing. But we have an organization called VTI in the UK, and they've done enormous work to recognize the different skills that a good researcher, a good professional needs. We develop training sessions, and I deliver most of those training sessions at the university that I'm working at. And these are some of the ones that I can give as an example so that you understand what I'm talking about. This writing your thesis is one thing. The other one is about preparing for your viva. So PhD students need to do a viva after they submit their thesis. So aspects related to their research is one area. But I also deliver sessions on presenting at conferences, networking, effective networking with colleagues, personal responsibility, how they manage work life and how they can work more productively. Teamwork is another one, collegiality. So it revolves all different skills. Critical thinking and analytical thinking is another one that's involved in those domains. So it's basically helping people to become better researchers.
I think there's a connection. Hello, Fatosh Hoca?
Hello. Yes, you froze and you're back.
Now it's okay, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you. And have you finished your answer about it?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so. If
you.
everybody kind of heard what I was saying, then
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Hocam. And my other question is kind of related with this, like, what about the PhD? And what kind of advice would you give to someone who is planning to do a PhD? You're a professional about this one. So what is your ideas about it?
So I can only give people suggestions and advice about the UK context because every country will be different. But in the
Which
UK,
is perfect.
if anybody is interested in doing a PhD in the UK, a traditional PhD is 3 years full time and 5-6 years part time. So that you know. Usually you need to produce an 80,000 word thesis at the end of the PhD. And as I said, you need to do the training that I have mentioned that I deliver at the university. So if you are planning, then you need to think about a topic and read a bit around your area. Of course, with teachers, I think mainly, I can see my friends who's just joined, but mainly I think there are teachers who are listening to us. So identifying a gap in knowledge in your area is the first thing that you're expected to do. So it can be a problem in your class that you're experiencing and you want to do a little bit more research about it. So you can start with an action research to gain more idea and knowledge around it. But initially you need to read around your topic, what you're interested in. So I would say that pick a topic that you are passionate about, you're interested because you get really bored of it after 3-4 years of working on the same topic. And one of the things about a UK PhD, the most important thing is to choose your supervisor. Not the university, not the town that you are going to go and live, but the supervisor that you're going to work with, because that is the main person that you'll be working with. You usually get 2 supervisors, and approach people, research. After you identify what's your area of interest, you can search universities and find out people's research expertise and what areas they would want PhD students. And after you have a short list of 4 people, I would say approach them and have a chat to discuss your ideas. After that, you'll be required to write a proposal and do an interview with the university that you apply. But the main thing is the supervisor and who you want to work with on your topic.
Okay. Is there a chance to be our supervisor? Do you think about
Oh, thank you, Volkan, for that kind suggestion. I'm not supervising PhD students. I'm training them on the skills, transferable skills. Another thing that I think I would like to add here is probably people are thinking, how do I get funding for my PhD? How am I going to pay for it? So in the UK, we have got research councils that advertise studentships. So these are full-time PhDs. So Economic and Social Research Council is one, ESRC. The other one is Arts and Humanities Research Council. So most of these are advertised on jobsac.uk. So if you're thinking of pursuing a PhD in the UK, I would suggest that you follow jobsac.uk. And also there are information days that universities go and talk to potential PhD students. And if you Google findaphd.com, that's the main platform where universities contribute and give information about their PhD programs.
Like this, findphd.com, let me write.
Findaphd.com. I can send you these later if you want to share with people.
Yeah, this is the page, I think, findaphd.com.
Yeah,
is it correct?
Brilliant,
okay.
Yes.
All right, great. All right, can I move? That's all about it? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Fatosh Hocam. And my next question is about, again, teaching. So, and what do you find most frustrating and rewarding about teaching?
Let's start with the rewarding one. I quite like, and this is easy. I think everybody who's listening probably has this feeling, that warm and fuzzy feeling you have in your stomach after a really nice session. You do a really nice lesson with your students and you think, oh, this was great. Everybody contributed. We had a really good discussion and it looks like everybody's learning and everybody's engaged. So I really like that feeling. And I think that's the rewarding part. What I find frustrating, I wouldn't say I find anything frustrating in terms of teaching, but in terms of higher education in general, I do get frustrated with the concept of commercialization of higher education and the perception of seeing students as customers. So that frustrates me a lot, because I think the product of education is not a diploma. That's something to prove that you've finished, but the product is the person and how the person changes and grows. And I think if we think that higher education is a business, then we're taking away those values that come inherent in the relationship between the teacher and the students and how we all learn and grow together. But unfortunately, there is some movement in all the countries. I'm not sure. I follow a couple of the countries that I'm familiar with, and there is commercialization of education, and that students pay and they get a diploma at the end of it. It's the person that's the product, not the diploma.
I
So
see.
that frustrates me.
That's frustrating part. Wow. Thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam. And there is a very long, I think, question. Azra asks, thank you. She says here, many thanks for this informative session. If as a researcher want to write a multimedia-based questionnaire in an online mixed abilities class, what is first step? Write questions according to the class needs. Wow. Yes.
Well, is it Azra? Is it Azra
Yeah.
asking
Yeah.
this?
Azra.
Well, Azra, we could talk about that for 3 hours when you have time. What I would suggest is there are really useful books about questionnaire design. So, and I think it's quite important how you design your questions and what questions you ask and what kind of methodology you're going to use for a research project. So I would start looking at those as you have clearly you are aware of it, and that's why you're asking this question. The questions are key, but it stems from the methodology that you're going to use and the theoretical framework you're going to use for the research project. So I would start by reading introduction to, if you're thinking of quantitative research, then read a little bit about quantitative research. If you're thinking mixed methodology, then there are really good books on research design.
I see. I think that's I think she get the idea, I think. Azra, I think she get. Thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam,
But
for
good
the
luck if
answer.
you're planning a research project with your class. So I think that's a brilliant idea.
And there is one more question. Let me show you. Can you see it?
Oh, how can we improve our self-efficacy during the pandemic? That's a brilliant question. I think we are all I think Wolkan has got some questions about that to me as well.
Okay.
We are all trying to learn, aren't we? I mean, COVID has presented something that we could not imagine. And today is actually my exactly 1 year that I've started working from home. So I haven't been teaching face to face for a year now, and it's basically again looking at students' needs and prioritizing. So I think well-being is the priority that I would say at the moment. I would suggest that well, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not taking what I would do face to face and just putting it on a PowerPoint and presenting on Zoom. That's not the way, but we really need to think about what we're trying to achieve at the moment, what are the priorities, how students are learning, how we can continue teaching them in an effective way. And that's a $1 million question that everybody is trying to find the answer, and we're all learning together with the students, I suppose.
I see. Thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam, for the answering of the question. Thank you. And my next question is, yes, thanks a bunch, Fatosh Hocam. I'm writing my PhD project via mixed method in discourse analysis field. Wow.
Brilliant.
Good luck.
Yeah, brilliant.
Good luck. Okay. So my next question is about students' report. Like, what would you suggest to the teachers to establish an effective rapport with their students? And you can, I think it's little, there's a kind of difference between, like, right now we are having an online courses and face-to-face and online courses. Is there any differences about it?
Yes and no. I think establishing rapport with students, it all comes back to knowing your students, who your students are, and relating to them. And if you don't know them, then you can't really relate to your students. So it starts with trust and respect, I suppose. So those are the key things I would say, face-to-face or online. In an online class, we try to find ways so that your students can see that you really care about them. I mean, when I teach, I don't require my participants to turn on the video all the time, because I try to be mindful of, people have different contexts. Some of my students have children running around them, and they're trying to follow a workshop that I'm doing. So Some students live on their own in their bedroom, and they don't want to turn. So I think being aware of these things and trusting your students is the key with an online one, and not being too strict, as everybody's videos should be on at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And because we miss the body language, don't we? I mean, the report requires body language so that we can interact face to face. So with an online class, I think we need to establish that trust in different ways. But the core of it all, it comes to respecting each other in the classroom, making everybody feel like a valued member of your learning community, and making sure that you're addressing them and you're not ignoring anybody, although you might not see them, they're there. Respecting the fact that some students require more time to process the information. I mean, online communication, as we have seen in this session,
Exactly.
Doesn't work all the time. So you probably, I mean, there may be times you hear half of what I'm saying. So being patient with each other, I suppose. And these are the things that would help us to have rapport with students online as well as face to face.
Yeah, I see. Thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam. Okay, about that's also important point that you mentioned about having good rapport with the students. And my next question is about us teachers. So, how would you define a good language teacher as a teacher trainer?
I think I saw a comment about reflective skills as a teacher, and
Yeah,
thank you for bringing that up. That's really good, and reminded me what I wanted to say as well.
This one, do you think reflective kind of teaching can be any of help? That one.
Always,
All right.
I would say always. I'm a big advocate of reflective practice, and that's something it applies to face and online as well. And it doesn't require hours of writing your reflective diary. It's just 5 minutes after your teaching session to think, so what went really well today? I think it's also important to reflect on what's going well, what you have done well, what the students have done really well as what do I want to change for next time, depending on the group that you're teaching. So yes, I think reflective practice is in the core of being a good teacher, and keep improving. And that's when you stop growing, when you don't reflect on your practice and you become comfortable. So I think the comfort there is quite dangerous. If you're feeling too comfortable, then you're not reflecting enough, and you're not bringing new ideas to your class. So going back to your answer about good language teachers, reflective practice is one, but I don't think there is one definition, one characteristic of good language teachers. We're all different, and I do think that we teach who we are. And we're all different, and there isn't one description of who can be a good language teacher or not. As long as we are passionate about our subjects, and I think generally the English language teachers are passionate about learning the language as well as teaching it. Being passionate about your students and caring about your students. So as long as you have the passion for your subject and the passion and care for your students, then you become, with the techniques that you all learn and reflect on the techniques and activities that you use in your class. But I suppose these are the core values that I think a good teacher, not only a language teacher, but any good teacher in any field needs to have.
Oh, thank you very much. What good qualifications that we need to have, I think.
Yes, how you use the good qualifications is another one as well, isn't it? So I think without the care element, it doesn't matter how many qualifications you have to be a
Okay.
good teacher. It's care and passion for the language, passion for your subject comes with the qualifications and training and everything you're doing
Mm-hmm.
as a professional. But then there is this element that we can't quantify in teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it is under researched. So if anybody is planning to do a PhD, I would suggest you look into that.
That one.
I mean, that's why I wanted to research on teacher identity, because
Mm-hmm.
regardless of technique, students need to connect with you at another
Yes,
level.
definitely.
And that comes from the care to the profession, the responsibility that you feel, and the care for your students, I think.
Okay.
I don't
Thank
know
you.
what
Thank you very.
if people agree with
No, no.
this, but this is what
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Of course. Yeah, and that's a really, the good point that you mentioned about it. Thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam. And my next question is about autonomy. Like, what is the role of language teachers in learner autonomy?
So it's good that you mention autonomy as a concept, and I think learner autonomy and teacher autonomy are both important. And it's kind of, I know you're going to ask me if
Yeah.
it's related to each other, so I think I will combine those two
Yeah, you
questions
can, of
now.
course. Yeah, sure.
Um, So I think, first of all, it is important, but it comes from, I think there are three concepts that are really important with
Mm-hmm.
autonomy. It's, first of all, it's ability. So for both the teacher and the student, you need to have the
Student.
skills to be, to take responsibility of your own learning. So
Yeah.
before you teach the content or the subject, I think you need to
Mm-hmm.
focus on the skills that people have, your students have the critical skills and analytical
Mm-hmm.
skills, and the passion to keep learning and to take responsibility of their own learning. But it is something that requires patience and
Yeah.
lots of skills training. So ability is one aspect. Freedom is another. And I think both students and teachers need freedom to be able to make the decisions that they
Mm-hmm.
want to make in their learning and teaching. And for autonomy, I suppose teachers need the freedom from the institution, from their managers or whoever in the hierarchy, to
Yeah.
be able to make those decisions for their students. And so from teacher perspective, it's quite important to know your students, but also you need to have the freedom to be able to take charge of your teaching and not strictly follow a curriculum that is
The
demanded
point about it,
on
yeah,
you. Yeah.
demanded one. But sometimes I think there are strict rules about at the schools about this one,
Yes.
so
Yes.
you
Yes.
can't
And
do anything about it.
right. And that's important, and that's a very valid point, because that is the reality, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
there are things that you need to follow, and of course schools will tell you these are the things that students need to learn to pass an exam or to progress into the next year. But again, as a teacher, you need to ask yourself, so these are the limits that I can
Mm-hmm.
control. What can I do to help my
Yeah,
students become more critical, to take charge of their learning, to
learning.
be more passionate about my subjects? So I think it depends on the level that you're teaching and the context.
Mm-hmm.
But it all comes back to skills training. I mean, you can't really expect teachers without the required knowledge and skills
Yeah,
to be autonomous teachers, and you can't expect the students to be completely autonomous if you don't
promise.
give them, if you don't have, if you don't help them to have the skills required to be autonomous. So
Exactly.
there
Mm-hmm.
is a little bit of culture change that is needed in most countries. And I really like somebody said there is room for creativity. Yes, and
Activity.
that's where creativity comes in. What
Yes.
can you? I mean, I always say to the researchers that I'm working with who get really stressed about their research projects, I always say, what are the controllables? What are the things that you can control? And I think this
Mm-hmm.
applies to teachers as well. I mean, there are
Yeah,
things that we can control in the classroom. So control the
definitely.
controllables, control the things that you can control, and be creative, and help the students achieve those skills.
I see. Thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam. My my next question is about the. Actually, I'm gonna skip that question because we have already mentioned the bit correlation between the teacher autonomy and the learner autonomy. I will not move that question. I'll move to other question, which is about motivation. Can you give some practical tips to increase or create motivation in different age groups? I know that you are teaching adults, but maybe you have some ideas about it too.
It's practical tips. Would be different. Well, it will depend on which age group, as you've said, which age group you're working with. It will depend on your students. So I think what I would like to mention here is know your students. I mean, adults are very different from children. And I think our differences increase as we get older. So if you're teaching adults, then what motivates an individual in your session will be very different from one person to another. So how can you ensure that in a group of 20 students who are in your class, you can motivate them? So that means you need to know about the things that motivate them, their needs. With adults, I think we all understand information and we all get motivated
Mm-hmm.
through the lens of our own experiences. So we can relate to things that make sense for us.
I see.
Even when you're hearing information, you are
Mm-hmm.
interpreting that through the lens of your own experience and who you are and what you've experienced in life. So without the knowledge of your students, I don't think any method would work. So
I
it's
see.
not a magic tool where you use, I will mention the tools that kind of excite people, like Kahoot, for
Mm-hmm.
example, is a brilliant tool. I think many of you are probably using, I don't know, but
Yeah, of course.
Kahoot
Yeah.
is quite fun for young learners, but also adults. We all enjoy to be kids from time to time. But it's not the tool that's motivating there. It's what kind of questions you use. What is the
Mm-hmm.
content of those questions? Does it make sense for them? Can they relate to it? Is it relevant? Do they know
Yeah.
why they're learning something? So I think it all comes to these elements of motivating students rather than just interactive tools. But the ones that I
I see.
use, there are lots of discussion boards that we can use. I think COVID's pushed our limits now. We have um,
Definitely.
we have discovered lots of new tools that we didn't know before. I mean, some of you might be using
Definitely.
explaineverything.com. I don't know if you are using those to
Yeah.
create videos
Mm-hmm.
and instructional material, for example. Wonder.me is a good tool for networking. For example, if you're having a speaking activity where people move from one bubble to another, and an
Oh,
interactive platform. So
it's
there are
what did you,
lots of things.
what's the name of
So
the page?
that one is Wonder, WONDER.me,
Wonder
wonder.me.
dot. Yeah, me. Okay, like
So
this. Wonder dot
that's
me.
yes, yeah. So that is a really nice platform, for example, where you can create different groups and people move around and interact. So instead of we can't replace face to face, of course, when people are working in groups, but
Uh-huh.
most of us are using breakout rooms on Zoom
Yes,
and everything. So I think
definitely.
everybody is clear with that. Flipgrid is another one that I came
Wonderful.
across.
Yeah.
Mural is great, but again, all these tools are not motivating. It's how you present the information, how you
Present
choose, how you
information. Yeah,
plan. The
exactly.
content is more important here, I think.
Mhm. There was a question, Fatosh Hocam, from
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Tamar Dolitze. I'm interested if the speaker is engaged in any international ESP research.
English as a second language. Um, well, my master's degree, what did I do? So not really, because I've focused more on teacher education rather than ESL. But my master's research was on the importance of culture and language
Mhm.
classrooms, which I worked with ESL learners a little bit before that. But yeah, my experience is more with teachers and postgraduate researchers.
English for specific purposes, she
Oh, okay. You
means.
mean not English for as a second language, but English for specific purposes. So no, well, academic English is the limit there. So thank you, Tamara. Tamar.
Okay, thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam. And my next question, can I move to the next question?
Yes, I
Sure.
think yes, we
Okay.
have given some
Okay.
practical
So
tips.
my other question is, you give some typical you give some tips about suggestions to increase interactions during the distance education by giving some examples using this web pages. So I move to another question, which is about 21st century skills. So what will be the skills that people will need in the 21st century? What do you think about it?
This is an excellent question, Wolkan. So thank you for asking this question. And I
You're
think it's
welcome.
quite relevant to what I'm doing with PhD students as well. And it's a question that we all need to think about as teachers. Again, controlling the controllables and what you can do in the classroom with your students. I think people will not be surprised when I say a critical skill for all of us and for all your students is responsiveness to change. Um, and
Hmm,
responding to opportunities. And I
I
think
see.
COVID has presented a brilliant example to all of us how we all need a skill to respond to change. This time it was the pandemic, but in everyone's lives there will be other things, other changes that they need to adapt to. We are educating people. You may be studying to become an English language teacher, but in the
Mm-hmm.
current world and the career progression that many people have, you may not necessarily stay as an English language instructor. So
I see.
I think we need to help people to develop the skill of responsiveness to change, and that's what separates people who can survive and thrive with
Mm-hmm.
challenges and opportunities to people who sit at home and think about, okay, this pandemic happened, I can't do anything, I'm going to wait for years for the pandemic to go away, and then I will go back and teach face to face or go back to my job. That is not the reality anymore, I think. So responsiveness to change and identifying opportunities and acting on these is quite important. Of course, I probably need to mention, which many people have already mentioned in your talks probably, is critical
Mm-hmm.
skills, analytical skills, creativity. But the top one for me these days is how we respond to change and challenges, because that's
Yeah,
what will separate from from
good point.
students
Mm-hmm.
that are successful and who are not that successful. I can see a
I see.
very long
Thank you. Yeah,
question,
there are
but I
two
would,
long
if you could read
questions.
it.
The the first one is from Azra. She says how we can create mutual understanding creative activities in our online teaching because mostly it happens in one way. She says.
Uh,
Can you see it?
okay. How can we create mutual understanding, creative activities in our in our online
Online
teaching?
teaching, because mostly
Because
it
it opens.
happens in
Okay,
one
okay.
way.
I think I understand. I think I understand the question. Um, Correct me if I'm interpreting it wrong, Azra, but do you mean when you're teaching, for example, on Zoom, it's one way, you are presenting something and the students are listening? I suppose this is what Azra means
Mm-hmm.
about creative activities, and it's one way. It doesn't need to be one way. I think the tools that I've mentioned a little bit while ago, I think I have to make it interactive. I would change the activity. So if you are, this is an example from my own practice, so I think it depends on the context, but it might work for some of you. I try to change the activity or the nature of the activity every 15-20 minutes, because students cannot even adult learners, even researchers
Mm-hmm.
can't focus more than 20 minutes. So
Yeah,
if you're presenting information to them, and if you're talking, if it's the teacher talking, then I would ask a question and wait for them to respond, for example.
I
Or
see.
you can use a poll and say, you can ask a question and get people to vote anonymously after that information session, for example, after 20 minutes. So I think we need to find ways to regain the attention of the learners more in
I
online
see.
education, because the body language is lacking. I always
Mm-hmm.
leave my video on, so at least they can see my face and I'm not just a voice behind the laptop. Um, some of the tools that I've mentioned are quite useful to change the nature of the interaction. So moving from question answer to information,
Yeah,
presenting information, then getting them to do some group work, for example,
I see.
and giving
Mm-hmm.
them the opportunity. I suppose with online education, we need to give learners a little bit more opportunity to contact you as well individually.
Mm-hmm.
Flipped classroom is something, I don't know if anybody uses flipped classroom, where
It's a great one.
you share the information, some of the information, so that you can do the activities online, the interactive activities online. But with that one, I suppose we can't really expect everybody to do the homework before class. So I would still have a recap before I cover the material. So there are different activities and different methods that we can use, but it all comes back to, again, being aware and
Mm-hmm.
listening. But I have recently was talking to a colleague of mine, and I said, I feel like a radio DJ sometimes these days, rather than lecturing or teaching. And yes, so we will find a way. We will find a
Yeah,
way to make online education more interactive. Discussion boards are great, although they're sometimes difficult to get everybody to participate.
to
Um,
participate.
but
Exactly.
I'm hoping that we will keep some of these practices that we have gained through COVID. So we are not
Yeah,
going to go back to the traditional way of teaching. It will be a more hybrid, I think, in the future. It's just, well, at least in my area.
yeah. We will see. We don't know what's gonna happen. And
Yes, who knows?
Azra wrote something here. Can you see it, hocam?
Yes.
I mean, it should be the way, understanding, but
Okay.
mostly our students don't participate in learning activities. Many thanks, Fatosh hocam. And there's also another one here. COVID was like an opportunity for us, not like an obstacle. Personally, I was not very good in using technologies, but I understood I should accept the challenge. Definitely. It's a good,
Exactly. I totally agree. I can't see who
yeah,
said that, but
yeah,
yeah, I totally agree
that's
with
all.
that. I
Okay,
think yes, and then that's what I mean by responsiveness to change.
I see.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
some of us said, this is the situation, let's see what I can do, and you try your best. Yes. And COVID
Yeah,
is not, well, although it is really challenging for all of us, I think from an
I, s-
educational
I,
perspective,
s-
there are advantages.
there's a very good picture about it. You know, chance, change. It's like together. They put that two words together. I think it's chance. This is a chance to change, something like this.
Mm-hmm.
We can think about it like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely.
okay, now I move to another question. My next question is, and by the way, I'll think this one is better. You mentioned about the 21st century, something like this. I'm gonna ask different question. In what ways do you try to achieve a good life and a work balance? Can you give explain with examples from your own life, if it is possible, of course?
Yes, that's a brilliant question. So I can tell you what you should all be doing, not necessarily what what I do. Well, there are certain things that I have been trying to achieve a good work and life balance, and this is an area that in the UK it has again gained lots of momentum. We talk a lot about researcher well-being and well-being of teachers. So I suppose we need to remind ourselves that if we're not well, we can't help our students' well-being either, and we can't help them with their education. So what I do, I'm just going to give one tip. So I try not to work at the weekends, but that's not the tip that I'm going to give. It was Mark Twain who said, if your job is to eat a frog, it's better to do it first thing in the morning. And if you have to eat two frogs, then it's better to start with the ugly and fat one. And that has become my philosophy throughout my throughout my well the past 10 years, I should say, because it's quite busy, and I need to manage different responsibilities, teaching, researching when I was doing my PhD. So I think a key is to be productive,
Mm-hmm.
and to be
I see.
planned, and to prioritize what needs to be done, and make sure that you also schedule in some breaks in between. For if there are any new teachers who are listening to us, I've been one of those who you probably can identify, who would spend hours and hours planning the lesson. And we do that when we start the job, and it becomes a habit. So you're
Yes.
planning lessons until 2 a.m. in the morning, and then you go try to teach it in the morning. But that will result in work burnout. So yes, prioritize. Do the thing that you've been procrastinating first thing in the
I see.
morning, if you can, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have teaching in the morning. And then you feel better about yourself, and you enjoy the tasks, that's the rest of the tasks that you need to do.
I see.
So
Thank you
I
very
hope
much for
we will all eat frogs tomorrow
yeah,
morning.
that frog one. I'll keep it in my mind. I'll try to start with the ugly and the fat one.
Yes, start
Because
with the
I have
ugly.
lots of, I think every day I have lots of frogs to eat. Yeah. I start like that. Okay. And what I want to ask is another question is about the new teachers. So, what advice would you give to a new teacher who asks you, what is the best way for me to keep growing as a teacher, as a teacher trainer? What would you suggest to them?
Okay. Don't be afraid to ask for help from colleagues. And this is a reflection, because I can identify how people feel when they start a job, especially the first year of your teaching. You are quite scared that you're not going to be able to teach effectively, or you're not going to be a good
Mm-hmm.
teacher. And you can find yourself feeling a little bit isolated with that feeling, but everybody else feels that way. Even if you've been teaching for 20 years, we all feel insecure at times, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I would
Yes.
worry if somebody goes to the class without feeling that a little bit of excitement and thinking, how is this lesson is going to work? And sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, we all have bad days. Not everything will work. It's just that reflection process, sitting down and thinking. So for new teachers, don't be afraid to approach people. They don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily need to be experienced, but your colleagues, to say, I'm having this problem in class. What are you doing about it? And it's
I
those
see.
sharing sessions that I think are quite important, not only to improve your technique, but also to feel part of a community of teachers, and to feel that you belong to a community of teachers learning together. And approach people that you feel that you can trust, who could act as your mentors. I think throughout my career, that's more than the formal training sessions that I was attending, which is a good idea, going to conferences, seminars, webinars, I will mention all that, but finding a colleague who is trustworthy, so you trust to open up and share your problems and insecurities as a teacher, and for that person to be there to support you in that process. So identify a mentor, another teacher, to act as a mentor. But yes, I mean, these are, again, COVID made it available. I mean, look, who would have thought that we would be doing this on Instagram live, me in the UK.
Definitely.
Turkey, I mean, and there are lots of things. So for people who follow Twitter, there are lots of free webinars, seminars that people can join. And the last thing is don't lose the passion for your students and your subject, and keep learning.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam. And just on a couple questions left, by the way. So my next question is about the professional development communities. Like, in what ways can teachers grow by becoming involved in an online professional communities like IATFL and ITDI or etc.?
Yeah, I mean, ITFL are quite good organizations, so those big conferences are great. As I also mentioned, there are so many things happening these days, and they're free to attend. You just sign up. The other day, I saw on Twitter that there was a conference in Catalonia in Spain that I wouldn't have heard about, or I wouldn't have the time to attend, to go to Catalonia to attend a one-day conference. So there are lots of things. I think, again, with COVID, despite all the disadvantages and challenges that are presented to us, we are more open now, aren't we? So I let people to come to the lunchtime seminars that we are doing at our university, for example, and I had somebody from Africa just joining, not a student at our university. So I mean, these are great. So I think I use Twitter more for professional purposes, and I hear a lot about conferences. You need to follow the right people to hear about the things. So not the politicians, just professionals in your field.
Definitely.
So that you can hear about these. Blog posts. I think teachers have been sharing their experiences in class quite often these days. It's been a couple of years that people are writing blogs and sharing suggestions and ideas. So I think, if you have the interest and a desire, there is a lot out there I think people can find.
Definitely, I totally agree, Fatosh Hocam. Thank you very much. And before I ask my last question, there were some questions. I don't want to miss them because they ask about it, which is, how can we make the speaking interactive in an online platform? I mean, I think you just mentioned some online platforms about it for the interactions.
Yeah, Wonder is quite good. I mean, if you haven't tried.
Wonder.me, you mean? Wonder.me
is quite good for a speaking activity. It allows people to move from one bubble, which looks like a virtual group talking to each other. And they don't need to stick with that group. They can move to another one. But expect for the first session that you do to fail. So, because I think it takes some time for you as an instructor, as a teacher, to get the hang around it and to get the students. But after 10 minutes or so, people get used to it, and it's good to replace that face-to-face speaking activities that people used to do in the class.
Could you please, thank you, Fatosh Hocam, could you please share the website? I will do that I will write down the names and I will share it on my Instagram account.
Mhm.
What web pages Fatosh Hocam mentioned here, I will do that. Don't worry about it. And also save, yes, you can watch this video later. And yes, okay. And what I would like to ask, and the last question, I think. Are you ready, Fatosh Hocam? It's very, very difficult. Yes. And my last question is this. What is your motto, Fatosh Hocam?
What is my motto?
Very
So
hard.
it is hard, isn't it? Because this is a question that you shouldn't be cheesy, but you should say something clever. So here is mine, Olkan. And I think it is related to what I have been talking for the past hour. I think we teach who we are. So as teachers, we should all try to be the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And enjoy the learning journey with our learners, with our students. So
I
there
see.
isn't one good definition of who can be a good teacher, and it's not just a technique, but it's who you are as a teacher. So I'll probably stop there.
Thank you very much. It's a really, the important and very meaningful motto for us. Thank you. And Fatosh Hocam, before we are coming end of our sessions, but what would you like to say to our listeners before I finish this session?
Well, thank you to everybody. I definitely did not feel like a radio DJ.
Perfect.
Co-presenting with Volkan. So thank you for all your questions and suggestions and all the prompts that you were asking in the chat. It's been wonderful, and although I can't see all of you, I can see the pictures. So although I can't see you, it's been really nice to know a little bit about you. So thank you for taking the time to come and listen to me, what I think about education and ELT in general. So thank you for choosing Volkan's teacher talks instead of Netflix.
Thank you very much. It's very meaningful. So thank you. And thank you very much, Fatosh Hocam. I would like to say one more time, thank you very much for accepting my invitation and to, the spending your time with us and sharing your ideas and suggestions and time with us here. And it's really great, and it was really great honor for me, and I'm sure that for the listeners it was also to listen to you here tonight. Thank you very much, and I hope we can see each other somewhere as soon as possible, and face-to-face environment. It can be really great, and thanks you very much one more time. And also I would like to say thank you very much who came here and listened to us and spending their time with us. Like every week they came and they listened, and I'm sure that they get something just like me, because I learn lots of things from every speaker every week, and they are really important, and everything that you say are important. And thank you very much one more time, Fatosh Hocam. And
thank you.
that's
It
all.
was a pleasure. And thank you for the invitation. So thank you. And you're doing a wonderful,
it's a great honor.
You're creating a wonderful, we've been talking about interaction and online teaching and learning, and I think you have created a wonderful online community of teachers here, and it's been a pleasure to join. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. And also, thank you very much one more time to you, everybody. And see you next week on Monday at the same day, on the same day. And we will be with another educator like that. Take care of you, and good morning wherever you are, and good afternoon and good evening, and peace, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Fatosh Hocam.